The return of the beast from the Isle of Elba, Trump Napoleon, one of great return of king stories. What an epic Napoleon the monster marching to Paris tale of our age. Trump is most surely protagonist of world dream play, and now he is going to be reincarnated as emanation of divine wrath, the hammer of the gods against the ossified paralysis that creep, a disease that creep at throat of West, a sclerotic witch with knife at throat of America and Europe. And he arrives, Trump Soter, Trump the Savior, the Primarch Lion, El Trump has returned. Cry, you motherfuckers! Run, motherfuckers, we're coming for you! And I'm talking to you, Mark Elias. This is one of the low vermin rats of the leftist coalition of Reds and Pinkos. One of the people who interfered with, cancelled the last election. Not he himself, he was a gopher, but he was one of the operatives. Run, Jack Smith, the false prosecutor, and the other fake gangsters of the gay gangster regime. They misused the law to go after Trump and after some of my friends like Douglas McKee. Where will you run now? Imagine yourselves, in a Brazilian jail. Especially if Bolsonaro returns, perhaps Trump Department of Justice can arrange this cultural exchange program for some of the red operatives of the some have risen to level of treason. There is that I believe California representative whose girlfriend was some kind of Chinese spy. There was Dianne Feinstein who sold America's ability to make to mine rare earths metals, and it was found that there was a Chinese spy who was her driver, his chauffeur for 20 years, and meanwhile her husband was exclusive importer of rare earths from China, and she shut down California mines' ability to mine rare earths single-handed. One of great examples of treason, if there was any in American history, completely ignored. And I wonder what such people will do, because there are no towels in those communal jail cells where it's one on top, one beige a gangbanger on top of another. What will you bite down on? The mattresses are beaten up. They're not so hospitable for you to bite down on and believe. Look, I'm sorry if the left wants to glorify about rape in jail and joke about that, which I think is a great shame. A civilized country should certainly not accept that. It's a form of torture, but then can I taunt them with it now too? Maybe they can invite Russian GRU operatives from embassy to mass rape them in congressional Capitol showers. I don't know. I've heard this is program Agenda 47 from Putin, Russia. I don't know. I have to tell you, the niggas in Brazil jails where you will be outsourced on this cultural attaché program, they are especially ugly niggas from wretched, misshapen, ugly orc tribes in Africa. Like if you walk in Paris streets now, and it's not what, you see Hollywood, it's not like that. They've imported some especially simian Hutu-type Congoids, and that's, the tribal mix that ended up there, and that's what waits for you, Mark Elias and Jack Smith. And I know you subscribe to my show, Jack Smith. I know you're alt, but are you listening? Media Matters and Luke Turner and other Antifa garbage. Antifa, we are coming for you. And meantime, there are plans afoot now. High source, confidential, exclusive source, White House adjacent transition team informs me there are plans, Yama Payne, my friend Yama Payne, to use essential salts of animals, and that's spelled SALTES, from old alchemical manual, all essential salts of animals to resurrect Peanut, the squirrel, and other such animal that have been tortured by Fauci. And this is the innocent squirrel that was executed after being denounced by this especially grim Harridan bitch accuser, one of the sycophants of the Kamabla. A sycophant is exactly this, what was in ancient Greece. They would point out, they would denounce you to the kind of totalitarian democratic so-called government in Athens, and they would denounce people who were in violation of this or that law. Tattletales, busybodies, of the Kamala Biden red regime. Do you have any idea of what was at America's throat, at Europe's throat? The petty tyranny hanging over all of us with these malicious, vindictive middle-aged women and these fags, aging fags, and the middle-aged women salivating basically to jail and kill regular Americans in the most sadistic ways. They were saying it in public, the plans being discussed in public by media figures, by government figures for censorship. Everyone around Kamala junta was the darkening of the mind that would have resulted. These, again, are not random journalists. These are people closely tied to the regime that would have resulted. It was a vindictive extension of the kind of low-grade Maoist red terror that has been building up slowly since the Obama second administration, and until recently, many people didn't see it until this Biden disaster of the last 4 years. Many liberals have only been woken up by these excesses. You know, one small thing like this election, yes, I'm sorry, the stakes were very high, because I don't know if America will go to Mars or will have futuristic robots. People are saying this, but at least to get boot off your neck. And an election, much can ride on things like that, in same way that the fate of Russia in 1917 turned on rather small political events. In that year, the Tsardom was overthrown, and there was a kind of moderate liberal, not quite, but moderate leftist government, the Kerensky. Then they got overthrown by the radicals. Very small things can happen behind the scenes, and it's not so much, you'll have a Mars colony or no, but it matters whether you will be at the mercy of a person like I've just been describing. Never believe for a second the snobby people, the so high people who pretend to be above it all, and to say, this election, it doesn't matter, it's two idiots, I will not vote, I will only vote for intelligent people. I haven't been back to United States since 2020, you motherfuckers. My friend Ricky Vaughn might very well still go to jail. Hopefully he will be pardoned very soon. But they charged him, tried to send him to jail for 10 years. And even if he doesn't end up going to jail, the hell he's been put through for the last 4 years for posting a joke, by the way, that the so-called comedian Jimmy Kimmel repeated on air about a week or two ago, a joke that was made by leftists during 2016 and they faced no consequences for. But meanwhile, there is selective prosecution of any of us who are effective and funny at talking and merely want to enjoy speaking the truth. And we face instead the most dreadful attempted prosecutions like this, or intimidations, or otherwise even just attacks and doxings and such harassment from the fake proxies of Antifa and of various NGOs and such. And so, yes, I'm sorry if some of you are too demoralized on one hand, or on the other hand, you are too spun up on your own narcissism and moral purity not to see how important this election was in this direct practical sense of not having a knife at our throat anymore. And to then the positive side of it will be, whatever happens in terms of policy, some of the most intelligent youth in the West will be given at least a temporary reprieve, some years for calm and some ability to plan and such things. But Trump, yes, a man to be celebrated, the most notable human being for last 3 decades, at least, probably since Nixon. Maybe some people say since FDR. What an instance of how much a difference one man can make. Imagine if Trump had not declared his candidacy now, almost 10 years ago, and this event is a re-election against all odds, the culmination actually of this last 10 years. More than that for some of us, because we've been active from before then, and I'm not going to take for the frog's sole credit for Trump, but we managed to get these matters, actually international media attention, right before Trump declared his candidacy. But he's the one who led this popular movement, and if he had not, where would we be? It would be all Bush versus Clinton, or versus they would put some other marionette high yellow butler cipher like Obama or Kamala. These people who are not even black, it's amazing to me. They take these fake foreign blacks, they're picking as face fags, essentially, of the black community, so that callous white boomers can feel good voting for, it's a light skin and supposedly eloquent, although in the case of Kamabla, very tongue-tied actually, and would have been just one cipher after another while the country decayed, rotted under the weight of human garbage, intimidation from political gangs, and then actual real gangs, cartels imported from the latrines of the world, and meanwhile any free or high or spirited thought and action would be smothered by this malignant viciousness of the boomers and the middle-aged cunts. Especially, you understand, these cunts, these are the cunts who shut down the country with their tyrannical fear for 2 years under Wuhan lockdowns and vaccine mandates. That's robbed the youth of 2 years of their lives. In some cases, that accounts more than 10% of the lives of these young people. And these petty, vindictive bitches who are behind that hysteria, both in Europe and America, it's the same type of person. The Kamala looming dictatorship was an expression of that will, that tendency, which now temporarily, I hope, or permanently, I hope, has been crushed. But I want especially to emphasize this because I have many friends abroad and an international audience. I want to emphasize how much opportunity there is now for you in Europe, because the greatest danger as Europe awakens now and in the next few years would have been a hostile, actively vicious American government. That, it could have encouraged the European satrapy governments to destroy the incipient freedom movements in Europe as well. But Trump, it's a vindication, if ever, if you needed it, that the will of one man anointed by a divine power. How can you deny something like a divine providence when this man escaped 2 assassination attempts, once by turning his head at the right moment to look at, of all things, at a mass migration restriction graphic. But yes, how much he has arrived at the last moment to show at least, again, possibilities of great action. That injection of energy in a world, I remember before 2015, everyone was beset by this malaise, this feeling that nothing great or even exciting or even rock and roll could happen again. And now he come and he show purely by strength of his energy. Simply, you must appreciate him as an aesthetic rejuvenation tonic for the entire world. And as for achievements in policy, I tell you, I think he will still do much. The purists who say he didn't do enough in his first term, he actually did a lot. He was unique among presidents in not starting new wars for the last few decades. He shut down migration and such things, even legal immigration, which there's too much of it, was lessened. He brought back industries. He kept actually most of his campaign promises despite constant sabotage, including, by the way, from people you are told are Trump loyalists now, some of who are the worst bitches and I don't like this word grifter, but shysteries you can find. But I think he will do much. I think that, however, states and nations are in fact far too gone to fundamentally save. And I'm not saying that to throw cold water on anything, because either way, you would be best poised to help yourself and your friends in the future if you do take advantage of this opportunity. And especially if Vance gets 8 years after Trump, that would be 12 years of relative freedom and of a path for intelligent, energetic American youth and frogs to infiltrate government and to place themselves. But of course, if you choose that, you have to be careful. You have to remember, practice extreme OPSEC, keep anonymity carefully. Do not show people your cards in public. Please stay away from traceable radical thought in your public persona for now. I mean, you'd have to use judgment about what become radical or not, because a lot of ideas we were saying 2015 or 16 have now spread quite a bit, but it still takes some judgment. Do not be a spurg. But I mean to say, this opportunity for action, some of youngest friends have on one hand. On the other, simply, again, having the boot taken off neck for those of us who merely want to write and speak without thinking, oh, if I say this, will there be some fibromyalgia suffering, chubby, vindictive cunt in Department of Justice who will weaponize the law against you? And but this is a great good, freedom from tyranny is a great good in itself. Don't scoff at that. But Peanut, yes, the poor little squirrel, butchered on the denouncement of one of these regime sycophants. Have you seen the face of this cunt, the face of the denouncer, the informant, the Stasi regime lickspittle? I know that face because I experienced end of communism. It was on its last legs. Nobody really believed it, but there were still this type of person, and I remember them even as a small boy. You knew they were pointed out to you, and you knew which ones they were. Those kinds of governments, this is what they, that human type they encourage, this kind of low vermin. You see them in the movie The Lives of Others. You watch this movie, and the antagonist in that, the bad guy with a mustachioed party official, that type, that human type, is empowered by something like would have come with Kamabla, you know. And I say for all of those people, and in United States and Europe lately, it takes the form of let's say a 35 to 55-year-old, usually single, chubby girl, full of, I don't know, the psychology of such a person is interesting, but maybe a population transfer, sell all of these fat, chubby bitches to Mauritania, and that's a market for human trafficking and slavery. It's also the biggest market for reused Mercedes, and maybe you can get the used Mercedes they have there in return, and have Elon set up these cars with self-driving AI in exchange for these fat girls to Africa and ship them to the Congo. They will enjoy them there. Get concession rights to mine uranium, to grow premium banana, maybe heirloom chocolate plantations in the Congo. I went to the Valrhona lab in Paris. They have a lab there in the Marais. Valrhona, the famous chocolate company. The gay Jewish neighborhood, the Marais, of course, it's a very nice old historical neighborhood of Paris too, but it happens to be the gay Jew neighborhood. But it's, by the way, the best place to live in Paris now and to go out, that and the area north of it, the canal area, so-called. Not because of what I just said, but because it's also, like many such neighborhoods, the hip, lively, full of young French people. It's all young French people. Don't believe the propaganda you see online. You go out at night there, it's all young French people. They go out and such, they're having fun on the street, it's clean. Whereas if you go to the Champs-Élysées or famous area like that, but that in particular, and it was magical area 20 years ago, but now quite trashy. But not because you see homeless tent cities, but because it has international airport terminal feel, you know, a Gucci store, mass-produced luxury nigger store, and this kind of thing. But the Marais neighborhood, very nice. And Valrhona chocolate lab there, I recommend you go. You can't go inside the lab without invitation, but there is a shop next to it, and you can buy in bulk chocolate. Why I say this, many thoughts come into my mind. I'm excited. Chocolate. Hail Satan! Hail Satan, the year is one. Hail Lucifer, Trump. But Valrhona, this company, has its own special chocolate plantations around the world, including in Venezuela. And if you find this chocolate variety, not just made by them, but it's called Chihuahua, you buy this immediate. Or you see something that say Criollo Porcelana, you buy this. But I think they also have in Africa where they grow heirloom beans, chocolate beans. So can you please not sell off the dead weight, America's kind of, not all POC, but the dead weight POC, America's Kamalas, plus also, yes, the chubby, vindictive cunts that wanted to, but really not just wanted to. Of course they wanted to, but they already basically turned America into concentration camp society during COVID. And you don't think this election has anything to do with that? I do. I think a lot of young people, 18 to 29 years old, according to some exit polls, went heavily for Trump in some areas. And that's the same pattern as in Europe, where now a lot of the youth going heavily for the freedom parties. And let me give you some advice. Stop calling them dissident. Don't call them, oh, we're hard right, we're hardcore, I'm edgy dissident. Call it what it is. It's a freedom party. It's a freedom and youth party. Youth are voting for them because of the concentration camp they've been put through, both with the vaccines and the lockdowns, which is the flip side of this vindictive. The other part of this same mentality are the vindictive race and immigration policies of these regimes, where they are motivated, again, by a kind of prison society mindset, racist, anti-white, anti-European regime. What hell is wrong with you liberals, by the way, that you cannot entertain words like that just because, admittedly, some stupid people use those same words. But some of you at least are waking up. But if liberals are committed to equality under the law and so on, why would it be acceptable to have Interahamwe rhetoric, Hutu-level rhetoric, vicious against young white people? And many liberals have tolerated this. Why? Because they are cowards. Why acceptable to ethnically cleanse of white people, for example, in United States from elite schools and universities and such? You think this had nothing to do with this election? Listen, this is very real change happening in lead up to all these events. The convulsions in Europe now, the coming also of Geert Wilders' party in Holland this year, which I believe was inspired by Trump's resurgence of 2024. The youth are just abandoning the left, abandoning the insanity of, you call them woke. It's really a kind of racial Marxist, red guard, low-grade Maoism is what I'd call it. It's really happening in many different places where the youth are rejecting that. And this election representation also a kind of momentous ocean turning against leftist red incipient terror, where people say enough. No, actually, I don't want to put a ring through my nose. Being a slave doesn't sound cool. I don't want something. I don't think that devotion to a lifeless job without ability to build wealth and accompanied by confiscatory taxation so that then I can listen and learn. Yeah, listen and learn. A black woman, an obese black woman is speaking, and then pay my whole life for her to eat hot chip as she gracelessly expires. 400-pound obesity on hospital bed, and that is taken as the standard of virtue in society. No, I don't think that's a good life. It's a life of slavery by any other words, and I don't get morally tingles from that, would say a normal youth. Thank you very much, I don't want that. But yes, ocean change election that present many opportunities also for friends around the world. I call on Croatians in Bolivia to take that country back. You can kick out your tyrants too, and I hope Eric Prince is given mandate to have a Mr. Eric Prince joined me on this show a few episodes back, and I hope he will build a resort somewhere exotic. And may I suggest, can I be impresario and temporary manager of this resort, please? I have consummate taste in design and hospitality, science, and many such things. Not the day-to-day aspects, but I could, offer suggestions for amenities and so on. But Trump himself must be careful, because there have been already 2 assassination attempts. This will continue regardless what you think origin of, he would need perhaps own Praetorian Guard, perhaps Eric Prince or such can help him. But the assassination attempts against Trump, think about it for a moment, a large centralized conspiracy would not be necessary for that to happen. All you need are 2 or 3 rogue elements in some agencies, and they could, outside all of official channels, they could plot together, because they watched the movie and they saw New York Beta Time columns and saw movie with Natalie Portman, Democracy Die in Darkness, and they could take it upon themselves as the Reddit Jedi of the gay republic, savior of the republic, that kind of self-conception, grandiose, and it's rather odd that the second would-be assassin knew Vindman. I don't know if that's widely known, but the second assassination attempt on Trump, the guy who was caught, he knew the Vindmans. These are those Ukrainoid, they've inserted themselves like maggots into the American body politic. Alexander Vindman, I believe the name is. And they could be thinking that to save Ukraine, anything is necessary. And he was early Twitter mutuals, I believe, also with some government agency bitch. This would be assassin. So all I'm saying, it wouldn't take much, the so-called deep state, when it does exist, does not need to actually be centralized very large conspiracy. The flip side of what I'm talking about in a good showing, is in the movie Spy Game, Robert Redford and Brad Pitt, right? And you watch a movie, Redford as old CIA triumphing over some smarmy faggot bureaucrat type, the IQ fetishist type of officialese bureaucrat of new CIA. But the way that Redford does it, he just hijacks single-handed without using, maybe he uses one or two friends and another friend in British intelligence, and he uses the powers of the CIA and of government for his own ends. And so it's easy to watch this movie and think, well, that could be done by bad people too. They can just take it upon themselves with one or two, and I say this as a preamble to those of you who have a healthy skepticism of conspiracy theories, which you should, because most are idiotic. But the point is, it's easy for paranoid retards in government to themselves misuse levers of government. I do think the assassins against Trump this time were pushed in that direction by some people in government. And then, of course, if their colleagues know, they would want to cover it up because, what it would look like. They will think it's a centralized conspiracy when it's not. So it's better to cover it up to protect the institution from bad reputation and such things. You have to understand, it is these people in government and in media. It's not anons on the internet. It's these establishment people who for decades now have had lurid conspiracy theories that Bush White House was run by Nazi billionaires, was trying to establish the Fourth Reich with Straussians who were friends with Hitler's lawyer, Carl Schmitt. These were conspiracy theories believed in by people in America's agencies, and you see them talk ever in public. They are all convinced that if anyone thinks differently from the liberal mainstream, they must be a foreign influence operation. I shudder to think what they must think I am, but this kind of paranoid conspiracy thinking doesn't come from normal people, as my friend the bureaucrat points out. This is the origin of it. There are people in establishment, most of people in permanent establishment and journalism think that way for decades. And so I think danger to Trump life from people like this, paranoid, violent people in government. His danger to his life very real, and I don't know what he can do. Yes, take precautions, maybe some allowance for his own Praetorian Guard, outsource it to someone like Eric Prince. But I ask anyone in position to do so, fire up your, the orbs, your orbs of knowledge, your palantirs, to protect this man. Understand how much depends on him still. If Elon and other tech libertarians can use this time to accelerate technological innovation, if idiotic industrial regulations and other such regulations can be lifted, by the way, I don't put much hope in that direction, but if indeed they can allow a temporary flourishing again of American technology and science under Trump and then Vance, that's great too. But all I mean to tell you is, be happy, rejoice at freedom from tyranny. You have no idea of the kind of vicious Hutuification, Hutu government that was being planned under Kamala, already affected to a large extent under the senile Biden, the disaster that was being planned under Kamala for Europe. Maybe these stupid wars also will end. And it's funny how, again, Trump only president in last few decades, no new war started, and retards are again accusing him of being a warmonger or this kind of fascist, because of how he talks and because he's an energetic man. But now this man can initiate, listen, Mr. Trump, initiate this. Julius Caesar, when he came to power, he was clement and merciful. He was a magnanimous big man. He sought unity. He forgave his enemies. And in return for that, he was killed. And that assassination sunk Rome into a long civil war. Bolsonaro was clement. He was removed from power. You were clement, and they jailed your supporters. They cancelled the election. They were planning to jail you. They jailed the country for 2 years as punishment for voting for you. Twice, by the way. Now is the third time that you've won an election. Be like Augustus, be like Caesar's successor that established peace and prosperity and stability for Rome. He was not clement, Mr. Trump. Mercy to the evil is lack of mercy to the just and to the good and to friends. Do not show mercy this time to evildoers. Be the hammer of nemesis that you were meant to be. Remember how you and your family were treated? Think what I had in mind also for your beautiful wife Melania and your son Baron, the Kwisatz Haderach. Being the sword of reprisal in your second term and showing no mercy to those who have threatened America and Europe with vile tyranny. This is divine wrath embodiment, Bodhisattva Trump. Remember, you can turn your back on Mecca and you can raise the sword like Lord Hassan saying, there is no law, Allahu Akbar. You can overturn literally all the commandments of the Bible in a ritual fashion, every single one. Freeing the spark of spirit from the clutches of the demiurge. Hail Lucifer! Hail Satan! The year is one! The year is zero! The year is one!